Okay, we should get started. So before I go on to any 498 stuff, I want you to, if you are a citizen, to vote, right? The CCSU lists of faculty and staff sent this, and it's a bit hard to read. But this is a comparison, and there was an updated one this morning that I forgot to cut and paste. This is a comparison between different parts of the university and the percentage of students voting, right? And 2014 and 2018, and I suppose we're in communications technologies technicians maybe, or I don't know where we fit in there. But the nice thing is the percentage went up significantly, but the bad thing is it's still only 42%. So I encourage you to vote. If you don't vote, you can't complain about the people who get voted in. So I suggest you do it. I think I told the logic design class last weekend that in Australia, where I'm from, voting is compulsory, right? So if you don't vote, you get used to be a $20 fine. So the voting rates in Australia are in excess of 90%. So whenever I see numbers like 23% or 19%, that seems amazingly low to me. Anyway, please try and make sure you're registered and try and vote. I became a US citizen in 2015, and I've been living here since 2004, and I've been paying taxes and all this other stuff that you do when you live here. And a lot of people didn't understand what I was saying when I would quote, no taxation without representation, right? Because from 2004 until 2015, I was certainly paying my appropriate taxes, but I had zero representation even at the local level because I couldn't vote. So I suggest you vote. Enough of the spiel. Okay. Something got moved around a bit. Don't know what happened there. It's yeah, let's just make that smaller. There we go. That'll do. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. I forgot to put the printout into my OneNote folder this morning, so I just did it now, and it obviously did something strange. So that's where we are, including today, 4 sessions until Thanksgiving recess. That red box doesn't show up. And let's just check. I think I checked last week, but let's check again to see. Something is flickering, and I don't know why that is.
Is it because you have a pen on the pad?
Oh, you're right. Thank you. I always forget about that. Now, where do I want to go? Not there. Let's just check. So that's the raw PDF. And there is a bright red box around it in the PDF. That is not there in the the same PDF that I inserted into the. I'm suspecting it's a
It's
Z
cutting
order.
through the text of the box, so it's for some reason coming out white now.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you can see
Yeah,
there's
you can see the bezel.
it's white
Yeah.
instead of red.
Yeah, weird.
Yeah, very, very bizarre. Anyway, let's just put that up there. Let's see if I can. No, not doing it. There we go. So there we are. Still got a way to go. We've been gradually churning through the peer review and the weekly status meetings. And I must admit, I don't think I checked last week, so I better do that later today. We started talking about product. Last week I put the requirements that you put in your detailed design, and I've taken screenshots of those, and we can go through them again. So there's parking automation, still pretty much on track. And that's the screenshot that I took from last week. I didn't see the video. If you could send me a link to that video, that would be good. I'd like to show a few other people that video. There's the home security drone chugging along. I'd like to hear whether it's flown yet. That would be good. And that's that was the status from last week. And oops, smart fridge update again, chugging along. And that was the status, but there's some changes happening there that I probably should update that slide with. And again, it's a bit. I should make those. Let me remind myself to improve the line thickness. Okay, so I've updated it to today. I don't know whether the numbers that I've put in the Microsoft project are correct. So I'm just going based on what you told me last week and where I think you might be today. And now we have one minor concern is whereas why is it done that? The names have all gone. I think this is the smart fridge update. Had been cutting the red line. It's now just delayed down a little bit, so that leading number is sort of come down below this trend. So that's pulled the overall trend line down. So we're now all projecting to not finish. So whatever I can do to get you to finish, please let me know.
Some nice words of encouragement.
Sorry?
Some nice words of encouragement. It's the only thing that can happen.
Get it done. You know, I think you are. I'm just saying. So the trouble with working in a real company, particularly a company that does any sort of project-based work, is that you've always got this disconnect between what actually gets done and how it's reported. Right? Sometimes they're in sync, but oftentimes there's discrepancies between those two things, and the job of the project manager to be able to wrangle those two things so that they roughly align. Particularly, and the only thing usually the project manager is really interested in is whether you hit the promised dates, whatever they happen to be. And it's sort of even more important here because in a lot of industries, promised dates can slip a little bit. But in a course, right, you've got to have the results in by the end of semester. So there's a bit of wiggle room there because there's the end of semester and then when the results have to be reported. Yeah. Okay, I again have nothing really much to talk about, so I'm going to go back and start with parking automation. Any updates? So I really liked the video that you showed. That looks really nice. I'm going to see if I can push you a little bit to see what are you going to do on top of that, right?
Right, and that's just our little scale model.
Right.
Obviously, we're going to build it actually like a functional model. We just want
Okay,
something
that
like
is
a
the
proof of
plan.
concept.
Excellent. That was where I was going to go, right? Because that little servo motor is not going to be able to lift a boom
Right.
bag, for example. But the fact, so another thing that happens when you have a project, a technical project, where there is hardware and software, right? And maybe electronics in between those two, is sometimes the software can get a little bit ahead of where the hardware is. Or rather, the software can go from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 to 4%, and you can get something out of it. Whereas the hardware, it's got to go from 0 to 50% or 0 to 75% before there's any potential functionality. Right? So you've always, the software is maybe in some ways a little bit ahead of the game just because you can run the software on anything. It doesn't have to be on the target hardware. But I like what you did with that simulation, right? It's not really I don't know whether it's not a virtual simulation, it's a physical simulation of the system.
Right, we wanted to prove that we can do most of our requirements.
Yeah, and I think that's a really nice way to do it, right? Because it gives you a bit of feeling of confidence. And even, right, there's scaling it up now is still an issue, right? Because there's a lot more power involved. You might have to use relays to switch stuff rather than just the outputs from the standard boards. Okay, that all sounds good. Please, everybody, another status report this week. Is there anything else you want to say?
Just that we're working on the next upcoming week. We're going to be working on 3D printing, making like secure boxes and stuff, making them more durable, and then we're going to start testing probably the week after that.
Okay.
Full scale with stuff.
Very good. Okay. Home security drone. Any updates? No updates. Okay.
Yeah, we have more software updates if anything.
So I actually have a prototype of the sensing, I guess HSD number 3 and 6 combined.
Okay.
So the system allows, I guess, will notify the user whenever it detects motion, and I could show that too.
Okay. I might have a look once we've finished the main class. Okay. That sounds good. Okay. And no flight yet.
keep saying manual flight, but no,
Where you pick it up?
control.
Manual flight.
Self-powered.
Self-powered.
Okay, thank you.
I can do this one.
Smart fridge updates, yeah?
So where we're at is what you said in the beginning, where the software is ahead of hardware at this point. I had to wait on a package for Thursday for SD card and SD card reader to get the iOS onto the Raspberry Pi, and I told you already that I had a little conundrum. So hopefully it gets done today, and then we'll have some cascading functional requirements, because it's really depending on the software getting outside.
Onto the
Raspberry
Pi, yeah. Okay.
So-
Let me know if there's anything else I can do. What's up,
On
Mike?
the software side, you can take user input now, so they can make lists. They're just not stored permanently because you haven't decided on a storage system to use.
Okay.
I'm waiting on the code for the camera to get done, then we'll decide what works best.
Yeah, this weekend, after Windows is installed on the Raspberry Pi, I'm going to take the Pi home over the weekend and get it to take pictures when we need it to, and set up the LED strips we just bought to act as a flash.
Ah, okay, very good. Okay.
That should be done by Monday.
Good. That sounds good. Does anybody have anything else you want me to talk about? If not, let's leave it there. I know it's short, but please use the time to talk to your teammates and organise stuff. Michael, what's up?
I had a question about Git.
Yeah?
When I was pushing the origin, it wanted me to pull before I push. Why does it do that?
Okay, so
I ended
Prob-
up doing it and it worked, but
yeah, so what happens is, right, here's my pen. With Git, you've got the origin, right, up there, and you've got your local here, right? And what happens is you start off, say you start off at origin and you do a clone, so you get a complete copy down on your local machine, right? And then you do some work on local and you get a new version. And in order to update origin, first of all you need to add your changes, and then you need to commit them. Commit is like the database commit. That means it gets written to the Git database. That change has yet to be made up on origin, so in order to do that change, you need to push your change back up. What can happen is you do some work locally and somebody else either does some work on origin or does some work locally and does a push before you do. So now, if you do I probably should have done this in red, but anyway, if you try to do a push here, it's going to say, because you're trying to push onto something that's different from where you started. Right? Both of these started at the same place, but the two sets of changes are now different sets of changes. So what you've got to do to fix it is to do a pull. And what that will do is that will update again. Automatically it'll do an add and commit and then I'll go back to red. Then you can do a push. Because you've both got all the changes up until your most recent changes. That's why the push. Now, it gets tricky because it's possible that this change and this change the same files or same lines in the same files. If that happens, you will not be able to pull, and what will happen is you'll get a conflict. That's the other. If you do try that pull, it'll pull it down. But what will happen is you'll see, if you get a report of a conflict, what you'll see, and I've forgotten the exact format, but what you'll see is the changes where there's a conflict in those files. There'll be a series of greater than signs, and then over here, then some changes, and then there'll be another series of less than signs with the appropriate git hash, and some other changes. And then there'll be an end. Oops. So you'll see the both sets of changes inside markers that say here's one part of the change, here's the other part of the change. You can hand edit it and decide which changes go into which. Git will not let you commit anything until you've resolved this. If you do commit this as it is, obviously that's not the right code. If this is in a C file or a Java file or some other JavaScript, that won't mean anything, so it'll stop it working. There is a third-party free tool that I suggest you install called diff merge. I think it's called diff merge. And what it does, there's a couple of others, but that's the older one. When you get a conflict like this, you can open up diff merge and it'll show you three things. It'll show you the changes from git hash 1. It'll show you on the left, it'll show you the changes for git hash 2 on the right. And in the middle, it'll show you what's going to be committed. And it'll highlight the differences. And what you can do is that then you can say, okay, I want everything in, or I only want the ones from the left, or I only want the ones from the right, or actually I need to do a bit of a mishmash of both. And then you can hand edit the center one. And it's the center one that gets saved and that gets committed. Okay. That's a little long-winded, but does that answer the question? Yeah? So if you do a pull and you get that conflict, try and resolve it, but let me know. Just have a look at the files that are conflicting, because it will have this sort of rubbish in it. That's not rubbish. It's useful, but it's not Java or C or whatever the Python or whatever the programming language is. Okay, I'm done. Let's leave it there. Status reports this week, please. And